We allow Assad to use it in Syria. Then other countries in the world, rogue regimes in the world, will think that they can get away with using chemical weapons, a weapon of mass destruction, and ultimately be able to do so without any consequence, to do it with impunity. Now, with our troops all over the globe, with our allies in different parts of the world in which they live next to rogue states with chemical weapons, this is not in the national interest or security of the United States. So we're talking about a limited engagement, no prolonged engagement, no troops on the ground, but clearly consequential enough to send a message.
That was Senator Robert Menendez, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, as the U.S. appears to be inching towards a military strike on Syria, but still lots of questions remain, like can we and should we go it alone, and at what point does it make sense to get involved just for the sake of humanitarianism? Let's bring in tonight's panel on this. We're joined by Dominic Carter, political author and journalist, and Ed Cox is with us tonight, chairman of the New York State Republican Party. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here. Let's start here at home with the political question. Menendez and Congressman Engel both say, you know what, this doesn't need congressional approval. The president has the right to act on this in a limited capacity. Mr. Chairman, do you think Congress should sign off on any action in Syria?
Well, I think the War Powers Act was wrong to begin with, and as you know, President Nixon vetoed it and Congress overrode his veto. But it was ignored, as Congressman Engel pointed out, by President H.W. Bush in Panama, by President Clinton with respect to Kosovo.
And President Obama in Libya.
And President Obama in Libya. So, and there is a 60-day period provided for it, so we'll have to see how all that plays out.
But do you think he should get congressional approval before any U.S. military action takes place?
It depends what he does. If he has to act timely and he can't get it, he should go ahead and act. But the War Powers Act is in there. But my belief is he should act with strength. And this is not about chemical warfare. That is only because he accidentally talked about a red line with respect. His aides were amazed that he spoke about it back when. He drew a red line. Once the president drew a red line, he's got to stick to it. This should be about Iran and its allies, Hezbollah, and it ought to be done with strategic forethought with respect to what we should be doing in the Mideast in order to defend our interests there.
Agreed for the most part on what the chairman just said. The president should act. I really do believe, Andrew, though, and again, I agree with his original assessment, but I really feel that take the partisan politics aside for a moment, if that's possible. I'm not exactly sure that it is, with Republicans first demanding that the president take action, and then it appears he's willing to take action, and now they're saying, wait a minute, you need our approval. I do think that if he did get congressional approval, it would reassure Americans that are very nervous about this and don't know really if America should be doing this. My point is, it's a very slippery slope. It's easy to say no boots on the ground, and then something happens and boom, there you go.
That's a great point about public opinion. If we can put up the poll once again from Reuters, because more Americans don't agree with the idea of getting involved in Syria right now than do. And, you know, I asked Congressman Engel if the president should try to sell this to the American public, and there you see the numbers and just where it stands right now, a lot more opposed than in favor of it. Does this have to be sold to the American public before we do something? I mean, not every president, not every action demands it, but does this one?
Yeah, look, as Congressman Engel said, the president should not act in foreign policy based on polls. This should be focused on those who are our enemies and what they're doing, and the enemies of Israel there. Iran is building a nuclear weapon and the means of delivering it. Their ally is Hezbollah. If we're going to go in here, we shouldn't do a pinprick. We should go in and go right after Hezbollah on the ground, because they are on the ground. They've turned the tide of this civil strife towards defending Assad. We should go after them and give a message to Iran that we're going to act with strength. And if we don't do that, then they'll continue with their nuclear capability. If we do act with strength here, they'll get a message we're willing to back Israel and take action against them if they continue what they're doing in building a nuclear weapon.
And Andrew, the enemies of Israel is very real. I mean, with the Middle East. And it's a situation where there is no stronger ally to the U.S. than Israel. And so the U.S. must side with Israel. And so we don't have any interests necessarily on the table there, but indirectly we do. And so the president has to take some action. What it's going to be, who knows?
You know, one of the answers that we get about whether we need congressional approval or whether the president should sell this to the public is that, you know, military issues, the president has to act, and sometimes you have to act faster with developments. But, you know, if that was the case here, we would have already done something, or at least it's been days already since the chemical attack. Is the immediacy of the need here in Syria, do you think that's enough to allow the president to take action without signing off, either Congress or the public?
In my opinion, the president could take action should he decide to do so. But I think he also wants to build up an international, if possible, coalition. We saw some of what you played earlier, what's going on in Britain, in which they're building up support as well, just like in the U.S. So I think the president, if he has to, will go at it alone, but he does not want to. And perhaps that's the wise way to go about this.
Mr. Chairman, you talked about the message that this sends to Tehran and making sure that nobody else is able to take action like this. I asked this example the other day. What if we found out that China was using chemical weapons against its own people? Are we committing ourselves at this point to taking any action against any country that uses chemical weapons going forward?
Well, that's the problem when the president just almost by accident draws a red line without any consultation with others, without any strategic forethought. Do we really want to be in that kind of a position? It puts him in a box, and you don't want to be in a box if you're the President of the United States and you're dealing on the world stage. It's a dangerous world out there, and as Congressman Engels said, the Mideast is the most dangerous neighborhood in this world. It's important that the United States act with strength. President of the United States didn't do it at the start. He went on an apology tour, went to Cairo, made apologies. You don't do that. The United States need to be acting with strength right from the start.
I wish we had more time to ask how your father-in-law would have handled something like. Do you know how your father-in-law would have handled it, Richard Nixon?
I think he would have had a strategy for what he was going to do in the Mideast from a position of strength right from the start. Unfortunately, the Obama administration has not had that kind of a strategic view. So you have Secretary of State Clinton traveling around the world, visiting a lot of places with no purpose, seeming purpose that she can come back with.
Put that one on a tee for him. He just swung for the fences and he knocked it out. We're going to take a quick break here on RFL. After the break, we shift our attention closer to home and a big surprise in the race for City Hall. No shock that Bill de Blasio still leads the Democratic field, but it's the size of his lead that's got even some experts shaking their heads. That's next. Stay with us.